Hi, I'm Alan Roettinger, author of Speed Vegan, a book of recipes that anyone can execute in 30 minutes or less. Very easy recipes, and you'll come up with really, really good stuff. Especially if you're entertaining non-vegans, because they won't have any clue that you've done anything special for them or for you. So this one is called Mangoes and Lychees, or Caramelized Mangoes and Lychees with Mint. It's a really simple recipe. It does require that you get fresh mangoes. So if they're not in season, you might want to think twice, because you really do need fresh, not canned mangoes. Here's how you do it. The mango pit is thin and wide. So what you do is you cut along the side of it. You kind of feel it with your knife as you go through. And you'll have two halves, and then you'll have this thing. When you have this thing, you go like this. Just slide the knife along, kind of guiding it with your thumb all the way around the outside. Really nicely like that in one piece. And then we're going to cut these pieces in roughly 3/4 of an inch, close to an inch. So you kind of imitate that. These are going to be very small. They're not going to be as thick, but you don't want to waste any. I've got some already in this bowl. And then you just guide the knife along the edge. You want to avoid the really fibrous part, because it's kind of chewy and it's disagreeable in the mouth. And then you don't want to waste any of this, so you just kind of squeeze it, and some pulp and juice will come out like that. It's a very sensuous experience. Okay. Then there are two ways of doing this. Some people like to peel this mango like this, which is a little laborious, but to each his own. I've done it both ways. Take off the peel as thinly as possible, and then lay it on the cutting board. Do a slice this way, a slice this way, and a few cuts across. Let me use a big knife. And then you have nice big pieces. And the other way, if you're careful, cut the same way, one, with the tip of the knife going right down to the skin. You can kind of feel it touching the skin. And then across. The cross is actually the hardest part, because the fibers run this way. So you're cutting across the fibers. Kind of inch the knife across them. And then pop it open. And then just use the knife to scrape them loose. Either way works very well. The main thing is, if you notice that the skin is very green on the inside, you want to cut just inside that green, because it doesn't taste very good. This one was very ripe and very nice, so not a problem. But occasionally you'll encounter some that have a green bit inside, and you want to cut just inside of that, because it's not very ripe and it tastes bad, in my opinion. All right, this goes into the compost. Then if you're not familiar with lychees, these are an Asian product. These are, when you see them fresh, they have like a little reddish skin. But in a can, they've been peeled and they're in a syrup. So the syrup is very sweet. You want to avoid that. So what we're going to do is we're going to drain them. And just give it a little shake, because they're empty inside. They have a little hole inside. And they'll gather the syrup. So shake it a little bit, get all the syrup out of there. And this is basically sugar water, so I'm going to throw it away. I have reserved 1 tablespoon of that syrup to give flavor to the syrup that I'm going to caramelize, which is the next step. Next, I'm going to grate a little fresh ginger. I have some pre-grated here, but I'm just going to show you how it's done. If you have a microplaner, it's really helpful. If not, there are also ceramic graters that are made specifically for ginger. Or you could just use the very, very fine side of your ginger grater, or your grater in your box grater. So I'm just going to run it along back and forth. This microplaner is really, really sharp. So be careful. But the upside is that it's extremely effective. See that? It's all beautifully shaved pieces of ginger. If you're using the box grater, those are the side that it looks like somebody poked holes in with a nail, you might end up with a lot of fibers, so you want to be careful to make sure to take those out. Squeeze the ginger out of that and throw away the fibers because they don't go well in the mouth. Place the pan over high heat. Add the 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. You can also use pound sugar, palm sugar that is. That was the lychee syrup. Sometimes it's difficult to tell when brown sugar is caramelized because it's already brown, but what you'll be looking for is liquid. It should all liquefy with no little bits of graininess. And you can tell as you rub the spoon around in the bowl, in the pan. And it looks like we're getting close. Dead giveaway is if it starts smoking, which we're starting to see now. So I'm going to throw in the mango. At first, the cold mango will cause the caramel to seize up, but just keep running around in there with the spoon. And then add the fresh lime juice and the grated ginger. And this will start flowing together into a sauce. Caramel will melt. Now you don't really want to cook the mango, you just want to gather the juices into a nice sauce. We'll add the lychees. Any last little bits of mango. Now we're essentially just warming the dish. You don't want to cook it past this point. You just want to just warm it. Should smell a beautiful ginger smell. All very exotic. Okay, now that we've got this done, we're going to prepare the plate. One last thing I like to do is to put a little fresh lime zest in it. Similar to other zests, you want to get only the outer color because that's where the flavor is, and inside is bitter. So we're using a microplaner or whatever you're using. Gently just abrade off just the outer layer. And I'm just going to throw a few pieces in here. It's going to give it a nice fresh lime taste. Just a little bit. Notice I keep turning it because I don't want to get the white part in there. Also, it helps you get nice long strips. If you make a nice even movement, it gets a longer strip. You don't want to cook this because it makes it bitter. So now that the cooking is done, stir it in. Also gives it a nice color. I'm going to use a scoop. This is about 4 servings. It's very rich and very sweet and tasty, but you don't want to overdo it and overwhelm people. Get a little bit of the sauce. Enough lychee and everything. And for the final touch, I'm going to use some mint leaves. About 4 or 5 mint leaves per person. And what I do is I stack them up one on top of the other. Makes slicing easy. And then just do some cross pieces. Fluff them a little bit to separate them. And sprinkle them over the dish. That's probably enough right there. Nobody can see you when you're doing this because you're in the kitchen and they're in the dining room. Caramelized mangoes and lychees with mint. Ta-da! So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. You can get this recipe and many more in my book, Speed Vegan. The beauty of this book is you'll be able to make anything in 30 minutes or less, and it'll be beautiful, it'll be tasty, and even your non-vegan friends will love it. At the best bookstores in town. Look for it.